Hi guys, so before we get into the actual conversation, I want to walk you guys through some different things that you'll hear in this conversation. These will be things like greetings, vocabulary, phrases, idioms, just things that will help you understand the conversation better. But most importantly, these are things that will help you have this conversation on your own. Perhaps you can have it with each other. Perhaps you'll have it with a classmate or someone who is a native English speaker. These will just kind of be ways to kind of give you guys ways to get started or give you little phrases or tips that a native speaker would just kind of naturally say. So these are conversations that I kind of just made up. Some of them are taken from pieces of conversations that I've actually had, but all of them are very, very natural and very, very typical conversations that two Americans would have. All right, so let's start with greetings. So the way that I mostly greet people is hey. So instead of saying hello or hi, and I would say hi and hey are probably the two most common greetings, I tend to say hey. Why do I do that? I don't know. It's just what I do. It's what I like to say. You can do it too. It is extremely common. Like I said, hi is extremely common. And so in this conversation, we're going to say hey and then the person's name. Another thing you're going to see at the beginning of this conversation is the phrase, good to see you. So good to see you is a phrase that you can use with anybody. You can use it with an acquaintance, a teacher, a friend, your best friend. It can be used with anyone. The only exception is that you cannot use it with someone you have never met. You can't use it with a stranger because you're saying it's good to see you. And if I've never met you before, how do I know if it's good to see you? I might not like you. So good to see you is something that you're going to say with someone you have met before. You don't have to be super close to them, but they should know who you are. You should know who they are. You've had a conversation before. It's not the first time you're seeing them. And good to see you simply just means that. It means it's good to see you. I'm happy to see you. Positive feelings upon seeing you is all it really means. So then you're going to hear the question that this conversation is all about, and that is, how's it going? Or how have you been? And these are questions that are kind of substitutes for how are you? You can use either of them, any of them. The real difference between how have you been and how's it going is that you're actually expecting a little more of an answer. If you just say, how are you? You're going to get a one-word answer, maybe a couple of words, and then that's kind of it. That's kind of the end of the conversation. You're going to have to bring up something else if you want to keep the conversation going. But if you say, how have you been? Or how's it going? How's it going? You probably will get a 1 to 3 word answer. It's going great. It's going fine. It's going awesome. You might get someone who says, oh, it's been going awesome. I've been doing this and that. So you could give someone the option of saying a little bit more. If you say, how have you been? It's the same thing. You can get a 1, 2, or 3 word answer, but you're even more likely though to get an answer that actually gets into a little bit of a conversation and someone actually tells you some of the things that they've been doing. When you ask this question, you're really asking, what have you been doing from now until the last time I saw you or that we spoke in? So from that last time we spoke, the last time I saw you until now, what's been happening? What have you been doing? What's been going on? And that's why you're more likely to get a little bit more of an answer. If they really don't want to give you an answer, then they might just say, oh yeah, I've been fine. I've been great. Everything's been good. Now that doesn't mean they don't want to talk to you. It just might mean they really haven't been up to much and they don't have anything to say. But this is kind of like a nice way to kind of get into a conversation just kind of from the greetings. So of course, if someone asks these questions, we have to answer them. One way that we can do it is by saying great. You can also just kind of tell them what you've been doing. Another answer that you could give is I'm hanging in there, and that is the answer that we will use in this conversation. So I'm hanging in there is interesting because, like I like to say, hey, when I see people for the first time instead of saying hello, although I might say hello, some people just like to say I'm hanging in there. And that's kind of the standard answer that they give every time someone says any form of how are you. So someone who says it in that way could be doing really great. They could not be doing really great. You really don't know. I'm hanging in there is kind of their standard way of answering the question. Or you could get someone who says, I'm hanging in there. And what they mean by that is I'm not doing great. This is kind of the I'm doing so-so. No one ever actually says I'm doing so-so. I'm hanging in there is kind of the way of saying I'm doing so-so. Or, like I said, it could just be your way of speaking and you say I'm hanging in there to everything. The way that you're going to know is in how someone says it. If they say, I'm hanging in there, then that's probably their standard answer and they're probably doing great. I'm hanging in there. It's been a little rough, but I'm hanging in there. Probably means I'm doing so-so. I'm not doing great. I guess I could be doing worse, but it's not good. I'm hanging in there. That's kind of how you'll get that, and you'll pick up on that based on how they say it. As so often is the case with English, so much is based on how you say the words. All right, let's get to some sentence starters. These are just some kind of easy ways to start a sentence that you'll see in these conversations. You can use these for your own conversations. They're just kind of a way to get yourself going so that you know what to say. So we're going to start with I've been or I've also been. And so we ask the question in the greeting, what have you been up to? So we're going to answer it. And you might answer it by saying, I've been. And when you start with I've been, you're talking about the period of time between when we last spoke or when I last saw you and right now. I'm about to tell you what I've been doing during that time. And we're usually going to follow up with a verb. I've been, verb. I've been eating. I've been running. I've been busy. I've been learning new things. Whatever it is you've been doing, you'll fill it in there. And then you might say, I've also been. So again, this is going to cover from when we last saw each other or when we last spoke up until now, telling me the things that you've been doing. But in this case, we're saying also, which means you've already just told me some things that you've been doing. And now you're going to tell me more things that you've been doing. So I've told you one thing. Now I'm going to tell you another thing. And you can say, I've been doing this, I've been doing that, I've been doing blah, blah, blah. I've been doing A, B, C. You can put all of that together. You don't have to say I've also been just because you're saying a second thing. It's up to you. It's an option. You're just going to pick your style and decide how you want to speak. And so this just gives you another option. Another thing that you can say is I'm currently. And so this just means what I'm doing right now. What right now means is relative. It could be right now this second. It could be 5 minutes ago, yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. I'm currently is just going to refer to kind of what's going on in this period of time. If that period of time is the school year, so if you're saying, I'm currently studying math, you can be talking about the entire school year. If math is your major, you might be talking about the entire time of your degree. So that time period is going to depend on what it is you're talking about. Okay, let's talk about what I like to call acknowledgments. So these are things that you do to keep a conversation going. These are things that you do to make sure that you're being an active listener. These are things that you do to make sure somebody wants to keep talking to you and wants to talk to you again. If you have ever had a conversation with a native speaker and they were doing a lot of talking and you weren't doing a lot of talking and the conversation kind of ended a little bit quickly, or the next time they saw you, the conversation was really quick, they just didn't seem like they wanted to talk to you, it might be because you didn't use acknowledgments. Acknowledgements is not a real term. It's a thing that I made up. It's an Elisa term. And it just means that you're acknowledging what someone is saying. So when someone is talking to you and you're having a conversation, you have to acknowledge that they're saying things. So you can do that with your nonverbal cues. So things like, you can do it with sounds. Oh, Or you can do it with actual words. I recommend that you do all three. Acknowledgements are some of the words that you can use, some of the words that you will hear in this conversation to kind of just acknowledge, hey person, I'm having a conversation with, you've said things and I'm acknowledging that you've said things because I want you to think I'm listening to you. And I want you to think I'm enjoying this conversation and I want you to enjoy this conversation. And that's why we use acknowledgements. So in this conversation, some of the acknowledgements that you will hear are nice, awesome. These are just kind of ways to agree. So someone says something, I got a new puppy, nice. I got a new cat, awesome. So these are just ways to be like, that's cool. You said something that sounded great and I'm going to acknowledge that. Nice, awesome. Yup is another one that you can do, very popular. And you're, again, just kind of agreeing. Someone says something, I cannot wait for this school day to be over. Yup. You're just agreeing. You're not really adding to the conversation. You're just continuing the conversation. You're acknowledging that someone has said something and you're being a little more fun to talk to. Another acknowledgement is I hear you, which really just means I agree. I heard what you said. I agree. We think the same thing. I hear you. Yeah and I know are two other ways of saying I agree. So that professor is so terrible. Yeah. Or this is the most amazing donut I've ever had. I know. So you're just agreeing. Now, when you say something like I know, it can mean different things depending on how you say it. I know or I know can be totally different. So how you say something really matters. As we get into more and more conversations, you'll see me use a lot of the same acknowledgements and sometimes they'll be a little bit different. Same thing with the phrases. I'll use a lot of the phrases multiple times, but in different ways, just kind of depending on what's happening in the conversation. This way you guys can see examples of that. And our last acknowledgement for this conversation is let's do it. So let's do it can mean let's go. You've suggested something. You said we should do something. I agree. Let's do it right now. We're going to go do it. Let's do it. Let's go. Or it can be a little more vague and someone might say, we should definitely get together. And you'll say, let's do it. Which just means yes. We're not going to set a specific time. I'm agreeing that we should do it. I do want to get together with you. I do want to see you again. But it's not a specific time and it might happen. It might not happen. I actually might just be saying it to be polite. But in that case, it's a little more vague. And the context, what's happening in the conversation will tell you that. All right, let's get to some vocabulary. This is the last thing we'll go through before we get into the actual conversation. So our first word is lull. And so lull just means a period of time where things are not happening. So something was happening and then it stopped happening and we got into a lull. Now, when there's a lull, we expect the thing to happen again. We don't 100% have a guarantee that it will, but our expectation, our thought is that it's going to happen again. So kind of think about a sports season. The sports season happens, then the sports season ends. There's a lull when the sports season's not happening because nothing's going on, and then the sports season will start again. But in between, in the off season, we have a lull, a period of time where nothing's happening. There's no activity. Another phrase that you'll hear is I can't wait. And this is something that you'll use to say you're really excited. So someone has said something, they've said, hey, football season starts next week. I can't wait. I'm so excited. It's the same thing. I can't wait can also just mean I can't wait. Like I gotta go right now. I can't wait. I must go now. It can mean that too. But in this way, we're going to use it as a way to say, I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm anticipating, I'm thinking something is happening, and I can't wait for it because I'm really excited. Another phrase you're going to hear is, it's kind of crazy. And in this case, for this conversation, it's kind of crazy is acknowledging that something is unusual, not normal, a little bit weird. Just acknowledging that. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's more good than it's bad. It's more positive than negative. You're just acknowledging, yep, it's kind of crazy. Now, depending on how you say it, you could say it in a way where it's negative. It's kind of crazy that they did that. I cannot believe they did that. It's kind of crazy. So you can absolutely use it to be negative. You'll see in this conversation, we're going to use it to be positive. A million degrees is another phrase that you will hear. This is just an exaggeration for saying it's really hot. And then our final phrase, our final vocabulary for this conversation is, you gotta love that. And you gotta love that noun. You gotta love that. Kale is actually what we say in this conversation. You could use a person. You gotta love Greg. You gotta love dogs. So whatever it is you're talking about, so someone's brought something up, skydiving, I don't know. You gotta love that skydiving. You gotta love skydiving. So whatever it is, you gotta love that. Just meaning, yeah, we like that thing. That's really all you're saying by that. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to the conversation.
Hey, Elisa.
Hey, Bob. Good to see you. How's it going?
Great. How have you been?
I'm hanging in there.
What have you been doing with your time? What have you been up to?
Honestly, I've been watching a lot of TV and I've been doing a lot of cooking.
Cooking? Nice. What kind of food do you like to make?
I'm currently obsessed with French toast. I've been having it every morning for the past month, along with eggs and kale chips.
You must love French toast.
I do. It's so good.
Kale for breakfast?
Yup. A little oil and salt. It is so good, and I gotta get my veggies in.
I hear you. Those are important.
I've also been making a veggie soup, which I know is kind of crazy since it's been 1,000,000 degrees outside, but it's easy and it tastes good and I can put anything in it.
You are such a healthy eater. What kind of veggies do you put in your soup?
It varies, but usually onions, garlic, carrots, collard greens, baby broccoli, and kale. Again.
Gotta love that kale.
Yeah. I also like to put some kind of meat in it, usually chicken or pork, but I'm not always healthy. I'm craving some donuts right now.
Donuts sound awesome.
I know. I was Googling donut places last night.
Do you want to grab some donuts and coffee?
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Hopefully you guys have some information so that you can have these conversations on your own. Go ahead in the comments below. Go ahead and have some of these conversations. Use these phrases. You can talk about this topic. You guys can talk about other topics, whatever it is, and I will comment on your comments, especially if you guys are having conversations in the comments. That would be fun. I will absolutely let you know if it sounds natural so that you guys too can also speak like a native. Please go ahead and let me know if there are any words or phrases that I said that you don't know. If you have any questions, you can ask me those too. I will do my best to answer as many as I can. I won't be able to answer all of them, but I'll try. I'll try to get to as many as I can. If there are topics that you want me to cover, if there are questions or words that you want me to cover, let me know that too. And please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. I will have lots more conversations for you guys, as well as ways to improve your vocabulary, verbs, nouns, phrasal verbs, all the things, sentence patterns. We'll have lots of stuff for you guys soon. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.